Hi, I'm Nate. Welcome to Stratum, the most powerful, versatile tax planning and projection system on the planet. We've been looking at Johnny and Janie Johnson, who started with some Roth conversion discussion and then did a little bit of Social Security optimization. They, however, still have a fairly substantial funding deficit, running out of money here in 2057 into 2058. Is just not enough. We can also see their assets in similar fashion running out of money in 2057. And although we can see the conversion happening and it does help, it's not enough. Now, that said, Johnny and Janie don't have anything recorded on the system by way of contributions. The only thing that's in here is an HSA, and it's probably by default set to expire over time. It does. So they're contributing to an HSA until retirement, which is great, but no ongoing contributions. The reality is that we get to make up whatever we want. So let's just say that John also has a 401k available to him at work, but he's not currently contributing. We could treat this any way that we'd like, but let's treat it as a new concept, which means that instead of entering it as an asset contribution here in our base data, which is more likely to be the case if it were an ongoing contribution, let's talk about implementing a 401k contribution as a strategic maneuver. So here's a $20,000 annual contribution that begins, we'll say now, we could bring this back to 2025, but because 2025 is already behind us and it didn't happen, we'll have it start in 2026, going through the year before retirement, going into the 401k. Now, there may be some employer matching here as well. We won't talk about that just yet. We can introduce it later if we'd like to. This keeps it fairly simple. $20,000 a year between now and retirement. With that new contribution in place, we can see a change to the income chart. Now we have full funding all the way through the end of life expectancy, and we don't go insolvent with our assets. That gives us a pretty interesting view. Now, this is where things kind of get crazy. You've heard me say, don't focus on minimizing taxes. Well, here are a couple of interesting examples as to why we should not focus on minimizing taxes. Our average tax rate went from 9.5% up to 10.5%. Does that mean that the recommendation was bad because the tax rate is higher in the alternative plan? Well, of course not. We introduced some contributions, which introduces some additional income, which is going to be taxed. That said, it's probably still fairly optimal. We also avoid going insolvent. So instead of running out of money in 2057, we've got almost $1 million left over at life expectancy. And it's all in the form of tax-free assets, as we can see over here. So this is a pretty compelling case altogether. Okay, let's look at one more thing. The contributions that we added have a $130,000 tax deficit, meaning our savings is negative in nominal terms, but in net present value, we actually do save taxes. We get additional income. And of course, we're going to have some additional RMDs because we have more assets to deal with. That just makes sense. Look, we're scratching the surface on this thing. There's a whole lot more in it. More to come. Thanks for being here.